Checking in with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for our first Tacky Talk of November 2023, Tacky.
Yeah, happy November, Joe. It is quickly coming to Thanksgiving and Christmas, isn't it?
Yes, I thought you might, have your Halloween costume left over for us today.
I did not. I think some of you may know I'm not a big Halloween person, but it was good. Actually, I was leaving Beacon Hill actually late on Halloween, very late, and Beacon Hill was abuzz with kids and pets dressed in a number of different costumes, slowing down traffic as I'm trying to get out of work. I probably should have stayed in the office longer to let the Halloween passerbyers go and come home actually much later at night. So not surprising. I mean, on the hill is residential. People sometimes forget that Beacon Hill is a residential area, and people try to get out and do the Halloween and other stuff before the sun got too far down. And I left the office when it was still a little too much light.
Right in the middle of it, right? I've heard stories that the State House is haunted. Have you ever experienced anything?
It's Boston. I mean, the place is 400 years old. I mean, the whole city is haunted. I mean, there is a ghost tour actually that you can catch at nighttime. I think I'm trying to remember what the name of it. I want to say it's Ghost and Graveyards, but I'm probably wrong. But you can. There is a trolley tour. Actually, last night I was at a colleague's fundraiser, and I watched trolleys filling up for this ghost tours. And honestly, that's a great sign. Seeing trolleys being loaded up full of people. It's tourism is a big part of our economy. It's a number three driver, depending on what year we're talking about. And it was good to see them go out. And not surprisingly, they were parked just around the corner from the Omni Parker House, which is famous for having a ghost there. Which story again, can't tell you right now. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, but
Right.
there's a ghost floating around in one of the rooms there.
Neat. Yeah, I mean, people always think Salem when you think Halloween, but really Boston's got it going on too.
Oh, and like Quincy, they also have urban grave sites. The Boston Commons at the far end by Boylston Street, has a bunch of graves. Park Street Station at the Park Street Church, has a grave next to it, including John Hancock and Ben Franklin's parents. So, not surprising, these old urban cities have grave sites all through the center city, like Quincy does next to City Hall. And there's always going to be some kind of story that comes off of various buildings regarding this and that and certain people.
Exactly. Yeah. And not only that, but now it certainly feels like fall for a change.
Yeah, as I like to say, it was a summer Saturday. We had a great time. My mom wanted to do the fire pit barbecue. We talked a little bit about last week, and Saturday was making it happen, and it's actually Friday late afternoon was getting everything prepped, and my mom had a great time with her friends, and I smell like smoke. Just get the fire pit, everything going, and it rained on Sunday, so I couldn't clean the fire pit. The embers weren't cool enough yet on Saturday, so it started raining Sunday, and I was like, well, guess I'm doing this Thursday, and today is Thursday.
Yes, that's right. Well, at least put the fire out.
Fire out. It's a sunny, according to my computer here, it says that it's a sunny 38 degrees Fahrenheit as I look down on the screen. So, what was a gorgeous 80-degree day not that long ago, we have sunny 38.
Yeah, well, it's New England. Just wait a second and it will change. It usually does. So it goes back the other way. It is heating season, though, of course, and that means folks are going to start to get higher energy bills, unfortunately.
Yeah, the price of oil has been all over the board. It's been trying to crack $90 a barrel regularly, and it's really having a struggle getting there. And natural gas has also been somewhat trying to crack higher, and it's actually pretty challenged as we head into the winter season. Massachusetts is becoming less and less an oil burning home. Homes burn less oil. It's just the nature that changes. A lot of families move to natural gas over time. But that being said, energy costs are still high, and Quincy Community Action Programs (QCAP) and does have a LIHEAP program about this time of year. You meet the income guidelines, or you feel like you're struggling, definitely give QCAP a call to see what qualified low-income housing heating assistance, which can help on paying for oil, in particular for certain households. And then We see what the feds are going to come up, because historically the federal government, if they can figure out what they're doing, provide some funding for us, and the state has been known to supplement that funding going forward. So it is actually one of those programs that we try to put more money into it, depending how the weather is heading. And then again, I strongly encourage Mass Save to everybody. Again, we can be repeating myself on that one about energy efficiency. See if you qualify for, let's say, new thermostat. I have a Google Nest, which does actually a great job on regulating the heating system, particularly when we're not home. It knows we're not home and shuts everything off. So, we should really try to look to save energy, and check your windows. There'll be drafts. Curtains are important. To do drafts. You're not home, turn it down. Yeah, and if it's Sunday like this, I mean, you want to check your windows for no drafts and get more daylight in, as opposed to turning on the heating.
Right. Yeah. The Mass Save program, I'm curious to see if that's going to kind of get updated in the future to encourage more alternative energies. I know it's still pretty fossil fuel based.
Well, actually, the big change you made last year in the climate change bill is to only allow heat pump systems as the heating cooling system replacement, as opposed to natural gas.
Okay.
I have, as you all hear last year, I have like pros and cons to that. One of the big pros is the fact that it is much more efficient. It is much less reliant on fossil fuels. Con is that it is reliant on fossil fuels because it's completely electric driven,
right.
And it's expensive. And electrical prices last year spiked over 50% in the wintertime for basic service. And that resulted in folks that use electricity to spend more, and heat pumps is 100% electric driven.
Right.
So if you live in a more wealthier area, you probably would stand the price shock. But if you didn't, you were in for a massively bad surprise last winter. And this winter is not nearly as bad on basic service. And still, if it's really bad, you're going to feel it because the price is higher than you had in the summer. Another choice you can do is you can have competitive supply. So you can search the DPU website to find, or DOER website to find competitive suppliers. So this is a state that allows you to choose your electric supplier. You can lock yourself into contract for X number of years, and the price can't change. So, and that's that. So competitive supply, for example, last year's winter was much better priced than you could get against the utility basic service, because you were locked in for X number of years. And that's that. Now, this is the gamble. If, let's say, oil is running really low, your electrical price is going to drop perhaps 30%. It will go below your contracted price you did with a private energy supplier. Conversely, if any oil rises past $100 and you're locked in price with an energy supplier, you will find yourself ahead of the game. It's basically the law of averages. I think people kind of misconceive that buying your own energy supply results in always beating so-called the system of basic service utility. It isn't. It's a law of averages. So if you're willing to, over, let's say, 3 years, accept the fact that you'll win on a long term, you'll be fine. If you are looking for short-term gains on energy savings by buying competitive supply power, that's not going to work. And secondly, it allows you to choose your power. So if you have a few extra dollars than some other folks, buy 100% renewable. You absolutely can. There are 100% renewable energy companies out there that will sell you power from renewable sources that they own. And it is a bit of a premium, but some people feel that it's worth the premium if they have the money to do so. Right. So those are a few ways you can save some money if you qualify for certain programs. LIHEAP at QCAP is where to go. Mass Save is available to everybody. And if you're willing to make some effort, you can look at competitive energy supplies and electricity to find out what is a plan that works for you. And look at your electric bill. You can see on the historical numbers for one full year on each of your bills how much kilowatt hours you use. And since the price is in kilowatt hours, you can kind of do some fast math about how much you would be spending on a competitive supply versus the utility. It can, you're willing to put some effort in some calculations, you can kind of get a rough count of what your price would be, try to project out a future spending.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of how utilities buy their power. They do it the same way, a much more sophisticated system, but you can do it too.
Absolutely. You can do the utility, buys in bulk every 6 months by law. They have to take the best price available, and if you buy basic service, that's it. And as we know, Quincy's trying to do municipal aggregation, which is being
Yeah.
still held with DPU's administrative hearing process, which is do not know what the problem is. So I've advocated try to get DP to more quickly respond to what the problems are, but something is wrong. If they're taking this long, I can't tell what it is.
Hmm.
That being said, I mean, municipal aggregate is an opt-out system, meaning you automatically end unless you opt on out. And again, it's also timing, right? If you have municipal aggregate right, last winter, the competitive price market would not be as favorable as it could be this winter, versus maybe next March, and you're locked in. And the reason it's an opt-out, not an opt-in system, because when they put the bids in, they want to demonstrate they have 100,000 residents or maybe 55,000 homes. Um, I'm counting the apartments and the condos, but you get you have to show that you have sufficient customer base to justify a good bid cost versus a smaller community, which may be more challenged in number of customers. So the bids may not be nearly as attractive. And like Boston has a wonderful municipal aggregate because it's a 70,000 person city. So as a result, they get very favorable bids. So I mean, the cities, again, if you're doing comparative supply versus basic service versus municipal aggregate, if the city gets municipal aggregate, you now can compare price between the city's municipal, the basic service provided by the utility, and also a third supply that you could choose on your own. But again, it's some math. You actually have to get your calculator out. You can't just like instinctively decide this makes sense. And then, a final warning is that the door-to-door salesmen, so to speak, of the electrical suppliers are rolling around again, particularly in communities that are low income and non-English speaking. And I've been working to try to figure out how to weed them out at the legislature by creating new barriers of entry and other ways to try to create some accountability. Don't sign anything. Lawyering number one, don't sign anything. As I like to tell all clients, do not sign anything until you talk to somebody that knows a little more than you do about what's going on.
Yeah, you don't need to show them your utility bill when they come to your door. Don't do that. Just say no.
Just say no. And then you just collect the paper and you can evaluate a different day. There is no rush to change your energy supplier. I mean, there is literally no rush. So that's a warning, come to the door, definitely collect the paper, smile, and tell you to think about it.
Right, exactly. I think maybe the DPU is too busy dealing with the MBTA tacking. That's why they can't take on municipal aggregation.
Again, I've had consternations about the DPU chair, the last couple of governors who feel that their job is to greenify the world as opposed to thinking about customers and doing their entire job. Transportation safety has been part of DPU as long as I can remember. And, as again, I point back out to the Fung buses. As soon as there was a problem with one bus, they came in there and actually shut down the company. So it isn't like they don't know how to do their jobs. They just choose not to do their jobs. And they're actually quite frustrated about that. My attitude is that, you got a job, do your job. If it isn't part of your job, obviously somebody else got to do it.
Right, exactly. Can we talk a little bit about the migrant crisis here in Massachusetts? And just yesterday, the court ruling in favor of the Healy administration, imposing a cap, I guess, on the number of families that can be included in that system.
Yeah, in summary, we have a 1983 law in the books that creates a right to shelter for vulnerable populations, persons with vulnerable populations, especially women, single women, families, domestic violence victims, certain conditions that are usually high vulnerability, and they have nowhere else to go. That's part of it as well. They have no capacity to go anywhere else, meaning they don't have a funding source or anything like that. So we have the right to shelter law, which is the state has to provide you temporary shelter as they work towards a permanent solution regarding your emergency. And again, it's very vulnerable populations, which also includes refugees because they have nowhere else to go. They're here. This case is the temporary migrants, which are essentially refugees. So they literally have nowhere to run back to. The domestic violence victim, same thing. You have nowhere else to run back to, unfortunately. So As a result, as you all know, we have the Welcome Center in Quincy, which is about 7, give or take a few days, people passing through Quincy and on the way to a emergency shelter. And we're using hotels like mad. This is not the first time this has happened. We've never happened in this volume. This has happened in the 2008 financial crisis, well, actually lasted well into 5 years, where we were using temporary shelters as hotels, and a huge cost to the legislature, a huge cost to U.S. taxpayers during 2008 to about 2015 to 15-ish, give it, and then we started, the legislature pushed heavily to get the Patrick administration to move away from using hotels, emergency shelter, and working towards more permanent solutions. And the Baker administration did continue, the Patrick administration work on that. None of us could have ever seen this type of situation regarding the migrant crisis. And as a result, we have insufficient funding to house as many. We're also running out of space in general. So the Healy administration asked the judge to allow them to cap the number of people that can receive assistance all across the board. And the argument is that they're out of money. And the housing advocates rejected the idea because that you can't suspend the law without the approval of the legislature, for the lack of a better term. Judge ruled inside of the governor's office that even though that the legislature does decide how laws should be written, the inability to comply with the law as a result of funding, non-funding, in terms of just running out of money, the legislature has not approved more money, allows the governor to make a reasonable approach to meet the letter of the law, but also meet the limits that the legislature has created by the funding mechanism. So the governor is going to definitely limit the number of folks that can get shelter programs. And the legislature is still pondering over her one-time $250 million request from moving money from various trust funds and retained revenue accounts, to try to give her a little bit of a backstop. And the feds, again, are not been helpful, as we've expected from the federal government. For the most part, except for the little gap during COVID when they kind of were a little nutty on the amount of money they were spending. Now that we have crises created by them, and I like to say over and over again, this is a humanitarian crisis, but they keep treating it like a security issue, and right hand and left hand don't know what they're doing on the federal level, and the inability for the executive branch and the legislative branch and Congress, down in DC, is able to just not able to create a intelligent response to the matter.
Or any matter right now, for that matter. They can't even agree on aid for Ukraine and Israel.
Well, and also the government's going to shut down in November 17th.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that little detail. I mean, the feds will shut down November 17th, except for essential personnel, which is going to get paid, not paid. Essential personnel will not be paid to keep working at the federal level. So, it's again, it's like a reoccurring theme with the federal government. We're playing roulette against the public, that rely on government services, as well as state, counties, and municipal governments around the U.S. that rely on reimbursement and support for services depending on the state, county, and municipality in the United States, and also the territories, which is actually controlled by the federal government. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're a mess. It's 15 days or so to government shutdown opportunity. There are a number of hotspots that the U.S. historically has been supporters of, and also playing deterrent in some areas, and just general operations of the House. I mean, you got to get a leadership team in place, but then again, I mean, one person can, in the majority party, can oust the speaker. Create no confidence and start this process over again. And, it doesn't matter who the speaker is in the Republican Party. It's still four votes will completely derail a project. And they have no interest of asking or compromising with the Democratic Party to make something happen, because they can't get their house in order. They have limited options of what they can do. And remember, Nancy Pelosi only had 4 votes too. And she did not have a situation she was being held hostage by a very small number of Democrats. Again, the difference of styles. We are not a monolithic party. There is a lot of diversity of opposing views and geographic interests in parties. I talk about this all the time here. The legislature is not a monolith, and at least skillful leadership will allow you to try to find common ground and great diversity of your political caucus. The Republicans, frightfully, is unable to reach a compromise among themselves. Agree or disagree with their position, decisions need to be made and things have to move forward. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't matter, but stagnation is unacceptable.
Right. Yeah. I can't help. I know we talked about this before. I can't help but think what John Adams would think. We just celebrated his 288th birthday anniversary earlier this week.
Well, I mean, the founding fathers wanted lively debate. They didn't want a legislature that would make snap decisions and rush to things. They wanted a balance against a potential tyranny of an executive branch.
Right.
And they wanted as much power in the hands of people through representation. Hence, it's a republic, not a mob. Was it what Adams say? Decisions by mobs.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of democracy, you elect folks to try to represent your interests, and unfortunately, sometimes those interests don't align yours completely because they need to get something. It's not really unfortunate, but it's just a reality. I mean, they need to get something for you, but they're going to have to make some compromise to get what you need for you at home. Or represent the interest of your constituency. They need to compromise with other folks who are not sharing interest, and that's the point of a republic. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. It's at this point exhausting watching down in DC, just inability to get their act together, and I mean, now you get to see the difference between two leadership styles of two different political parties, like I said, Nancy Pelosi, I know she gets maligned by folks because, easy targets, us politicians are fun to beat up. But there was no stagnation.
That's right. Yeah. She was able to lead, as it was her job, and pull the party together.
Yes. And that's part of leading. You got to be able to put diverse groups together and get them on the same page. And that involves, conversation and compromise. And
yeah, putting your own interests aside.
And your word is your bond.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of this gig. It's not like we sign a long, complicated contract when we agree to a deal. I mean, this is a handshake and a promise and your word. And in the case of the Republican Party down in D.C., they're unable to even compromise. And the conversations are apparently pretty rough based on the news reports. And, your handshake is your bond. And a lot of question marks with certain members down there. And of course, you got interested districts. I mean, you got about 20 plus individuals in the Republican Party down there that have districts that, went Biden. And they're heavily scrutinizing their Republican representative on whether or not they should flip to Democrat, given what's going on. And if, you're the one that goes back home and says, well, you can't get a speaker, it's leadership's problem, but you're in the majority party, it doesn't sell well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. As Kevin McCarthy found out.
Yeah, I think Kevin McCarthy will run for re-election next year. I think my opinion is that he'll kind of bite it out again and wait to see how it continues to unfold his caucus. And, maybe he'll return. This is a gig that allows you to come back from the dead. And he's, I believe, in his 8th term, perhaps.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think Nancy Pelosi will stick around one more term. I think she'll do one more term.
Interesting.
Yeah, in DC politics, what all the happenings now, will ripple into next year. Right about this time of year, you start looking for candidates on both political parties to run against the incumbent, and also in both parties' case, people who want to challenge the incumbent in a Democratic or Republican primary will be scoping out the opportunity right now. They'll be looking now to see if they can garner support at the local level to run for Congress. If you're smart politics, you keep ears to the ground to find out what's going on. And in their case, this is actually right about this time of year that a local person will start contemplating whether to run against their local congressman or their U.S. senator.
Great.
And
speaking of, so we're on the topic. I know that today, Tacky, November 2nd, 2023 is the 13th anniversary of you and David Wong becoming the first Asian Americans to be elected to the Massachusetts House of Representatives.
Donald Wong, not David.
Donald Wong, pardon me. Yes.
Yeah, Donna's a few years ahead of me in age. No, thank you very much, Joe. God, it's been 13 years. And it was an early November election too. There was a very short span between primary day, which I think was deep. I think it was like the 14th,
Okay.
and election day. It was really a snap to the end. But no, thank you very much for reminding people of that. And I always try to work hard. I don't make too much of it. But you remember, at the time there was a question whether Asians were elected, and everyone thought there was one in the House.
I remember.
And the media had to go check with the clerk, who had to check the historical records to show that it took centuries, essentially, to have Asian elected to the Mass House of Representatives. And Donald Wong and I are very proud to have pioneered the way, unintentionally, actually. But I think this was not an objective. And also our good friend Paul Schmidt, whose mother is part Chinese, from Westport, that we found out later on during the session. So the Asian caucus is 7 persons now strong. At a time we had nobody over 15 years ago, and trying to do good work. And I'm, chair of the House Asian caucus for now. On top of my chairmanship as Consumer Protection and Professor Chair, on top of sitting on the Massachusetts Beach Commission, on top of all the other things I got to do, at the various local level.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of, the commission met earlier this week, I think, didn't they?
We did. We did have an annual meeting. We did have it in person in Stales for the first time since before COVID. We had Commissioner Rigero DCR come by. We had Boston's environmental climate person come by, and some of the different advocacy groups, and the commission took some testimony, mostly written. People didn't really come to testify in person, but written testimony about their thoughts about the beaches. It's actually been a pretty good program overall throughout the entire beach system. Save the Harborside Bay has been a wonderful partner. A lot of kudos to Bruce Berman, who had known for a very long time. Me and Bruce were talking like, oh my God, we've known Joe forever now. And, with their support and help, it's with groups like Friends of Wallaston Beach and all up and down, we're able to, provide more programs, give good advice to the DCR, and to make sure the beach is accessible and active for all. And also most recently, we discovered linguistic access and access for persons who are physically challenged to have greater access. And, DCR has been working with us and trying to come up with more ways, whether it be looking at this, stairs and sidewalks of various beaches, what capital improvements can be there. We have different types of wheelchair ability regarding sand, but it also requires staffing and money from DCR. And the Beach Commissions has a little bit of money in the budget. I think it's about $600,000 to address all the beach issues through community groups, and that's been a big deal. So, much thanks to my fellow commissioners at DCR and Friends of Wallaston Beach, especially down here, on all the hard work they do. And the 2 yacht clubs, Squantum and Wallaston, very participatory regarding beach access.
Yeah, and it's a big draw for especially new people coming to Quincy. That one of the number one things they cite is the access to the shore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I take it for granted. I've lived close to water my whole life. But yeah, beach access is a big attraction. You don't need to have beachfront property in Quincy. You can, pretty much from Hancock Street, for example, you can walk there in about 15, 20 minutes. So it's very train accessible. People forget that.
Yep.
Get off of Wallaston Station, you can just walk straight down.
Yeah, parking is free there too. So yeah.
Yeah, you can just walk on down from Wallaston. During the really hot days, remember people were actually walking off the train to Wallaston Station.
I'm sure it was too hot on the train because the air conditioning wasn't working.
That's not. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. But I mean, this year obviously was a little bit tougher because of the rain. It just wouldn't end. And of course, water quality is tied to rain. People don't realize that high rain and our drains go to the beach, so don't dump stuff into the drains that will pollute the beach. Reside in higher bacterial counts of water that just flushing out the system, for lack of a term, out of the brooks and rivers. So combination of the weather plus high bacteria counts made it a little tougher to use the water.
Let's talk a little about the economy. As expected, the Fed's left interest rates alone yesterday, Techie.
Yeah, I was talking to some folks, actually asked about interest rates at the State House and, what about their future plans on property. And I told people if you want to sell stuff, it's time to sit tight still. I mean, even though Fed's left the rate stagnant, the market in terms of the banks and bonds and bond trading and all that, and the banks trying to refinance their deposits to make sure depositors stop fleeing, it's kind of taking care of itself for the moment.
Mhm.
So, even the Feds increased the rate. I don't think there was going to be a massive impact on the economy because people are now living between 6.5 and 9% loans. It wasn't that long ago they were closer to 3 and 4%, and sometimes lower. It was very competitive marketing. People's deposits were staying in the bank because there was really no good alternative out there in CDs and bonds, which is available today in other banks, and with the Feds. So, will they hike rate again? I think it's a possibility they may do this in January at this point. I mean, GDP number came in a hot 4.9 against a 4.2 estimate. To put it in perspective, the U.S. economy is very healthy when it's around 2 to 3% GDP. That's a good steady state for a very mature, large service base. 70% of our economy is service based. To be around between 2 and 3% GDP. So the economy is very hot and very strong. And unemployment numbers I expect on Friday will show that it's going to be pretty stagnant. It's going to be about 3.7 to 3.9. If it cracks 4%, I'm going to be shocked, which means it's almost 100% employment.
Mhm.
Unemployment numbers, when it stays steady, means that people get on and off on a near equal rate. And so that's basically maximum employment, where you don't have a spike
Yep.
in employment, and it keeps moving up. When it's a flat number for several months, it means it's an equal number of people getting on and off, meaning there's sufficient jobs. And the JOLTS number, the number of how many unemployment open, is still far exceeds the number of people on unemployment. So job openings exceed unemployment and the workforce number. So until employers continue to try to find new efficiencies so they can reduce or not add to their workforce, it's pretty crazy economy. And wage growth has slowed, which is good. A lot of your prices in stores actually now wage growth, not fuel costs or other inflationary matters. So we see what core PCE looks like, which is prices out housing and energy. We'll see what that's going to come in from October, and it gives a little bit of a clue. But 4.9 GDP, that's very, very, very strong economy. And Europe's technically in a weird recessionary state. The British are still kind of struggling. The Australians are struggling. The Japanese are strong. The Koreans are a little bit of a stagnation situation, and the Chinese is really like a mess right now in terms of their economy. The very schizophrenic data coming out of there. The key one is manufacturing is down in China, and they're a huge exporter of manufacturing, which means the rest of the world isn't capable of taking their goods. They just don't. They just can't pay for it.
Interesting. Yeah, we've talked about it many, many times. It's out of whack with what you would expect the economy to be doing right now, given the current state of the interest rates.
Yeah, and the stock market reflects the kind of schizophrenia. I mean, people, the goal is not to lose money, right? If you hire a financial person or your hedge fund manager or mutual fund manager, the goal is to make money for your clients, not to lose money. And I think there's a lot of constant shuffling around on these big hedge funds and brokers trying to figure out how to preserve their client funds, because they have a fiduciary responsibility not to lose their clients' money.
Right.
That's the job. And I think there's a lot of shuffling around as they're trying to figure out what I refer to as flight to safety. Where can they, try to not take a loss in the markets, whether it be bonds or the stock market itself. And I think that's what's driving this volatility. Partly, I don't think it's the whole thing. I think it's also partly the reason that the market, was completely destroyed through October. And then now they're coming back up, and there's a shift again. I mean, there was people hated for a while banks, and they still do. But there's also like this weird thing about cyclers, like consumer goods, right? People cereal moves in a cycle. It's not like this steady state.
Yeah.
So, every few days it seems like there's a flight to different companies, and earnings are down on the big corporate picture. It looks like it's not beating last year's numbers in terms of total corporate earnings, which again affects. We'll see how it affects employment. And the UAW strike seems to be coming to a close, and those increased wages are going to be reflected in the big three's future price structure regarding car manufacturing.
Yep.
And perhaps they're able to, find other efficiencies to keep the price down. But this puts the big three at a couple of different spot versus non-union shops, such as Tesla, which is the biggest electric car purchased by U.S. people. I mean, the United States is the single biggest market for them. It's not China. And the big three and other foreign cars are still working towards electric vehicles. And there's been a report that electric vehicle purchases have definitely slowed down. The credits the Feds put together has reached saturation in the market. And car loans, again, I said earlier, can be up to 6.5 to 9%. And consumers are gonna, like any situation where everything gets expensive, is going to stretch what they have longer.
Definitely. I'm driving mine until there's nothing left but wheels and a steering wheel.
You and me both. Although we do live near the water, so the body will die long before the engine will.
I know.
That salt water kills bodies, car bodies, faster than they kill the engine, which has happened with two of my cars already. The body at first. So yeah, I mean, I see folks, particularly on big purchases, I'm going to try and make things last longer.
Absolutely. Speaking of driving, we talk a little bit about a bill proposed that would allow some communities to install red light traffic cameras.
Yeah, this is not a new idea. It's been used in other states and around the world regarding try to do enforcement on red light crossings, basically to put cameras up, you cross a red light. At least they can grab your plate and try to identify you are on a traffic violation. Crossing red lights are really dangerous. I think that should be common sense. I understand the whole trying to beat the light when it turns yellow and you're like already committed, but generally there's enough time between the two lights that you got about a half a second before they swap over. It isn't instantaneous. So, I mean, everybody, probably gamble has been on that like edge of like a foot. It turns yellow and you're already overcommitted. Slamming your brakes will result in someone slamming into you. So you're better off just getting through there and basically going to gamble. But the reality is that a fraction of a second between the two lights changing. It's really people with a straight up red light and just cross right through.
Right.
But the challenge of this particular technology is that you sight the driver, not the vehicle. So where they can put a plate and maybe they can see you in the car, depending on how they angle it in the sun and everything else. The idea is they're trying to create traffic safety. Even the cameras there to deter people from trying to not necessarily just beat the light, but also just cross it indiscriminately. I mean, I think all of us seen people just freaking just do it. They just light's been red for a while and they just go. And I mean, it's not even like a 2 a.m. situation where there's nothing on the street and you're like, might as well. I mean, I've seen this done in Quincy and other places in like 4 p.m. I mean, on a Saturday when it's busy, I'm like, what's going on here? So it's also constantly considered deterrent, but it's a far from perfect solution. Again, it's about citing the driver, not the car.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I know it's been proposed before. I guess this current proposal would only allow the back of the car to be photographed to avoid any kind of racial profiling, I think.
Yeah, but the car isn't driving itself.
Right.
Maybe someday. But then again, when they do someday in large quantities, they will not cross red lights.
Yeah. That was my other question is what if the driverless car malfunctions? Who pays that ticket?
Well, there's actually a very tragic case in California where the DMV has suspended the auto driving car brand Cruise from operating because of a very tragic accident where I was at a meeting with technology guys last week, and the news media didn't get the rest of the story correctly. So one of the other self-driving cars, Webull, was there, and they actually knew the rest of the story. And it is true in California, the Cruise company did not release all the footage to DMV as part of the investigation. These cars are radar plus cameras plus a supercomputer plus laser guidance. I mean, it's full tech. And what very sadly happened is a car did hit a pedestrian the pedestrian flew in front of the self-driving car. The self-driving car did hit that pedestrian a second time, but as opposed to stopping flat like you slam your brakes, the car decided it was a safety problem and decided to drive another 20 feet to slow down the car safely, but drag the poor victim another 20 feet underneath it.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, the AI did not make a proper decision, because it is an AI system. So the artificial intelligence made the decision that this was a car safety error. So we will bring us to a slow stop as opposed to just slamming the brakes. We hit something.
My goodness. Okay. So it has not been perfected, obviously.
But there've been other incidents years ago, many years ago now, regarding things like the color white. Had problems identifying reflective surfaces. They have problems reading certain types of signs. Obviously, technology has advanced since those instances. Like they had a legit real problem seeing white things.
No, that could be a problem in a snowstorm around here.
Well, actually, yeah, that's true. I mean, I talked to a guy from Minnesota, a senator from Minnesota, who basically has dedicated like 8 years of his life to electric vehicles. And he said, there's no lines on the street in Minnesota when it snows, and it takes a long time to get it plowed. So an autonomous vehicle is sitting a sheet of white. Humans that drive the roads long enough can, kind of figure out where the lines are. You do it long enough. All of us are driven in conditions where you stay to the right of the road and have some ideas of where you're supposed to be. But autonomous vehicle could find itself driving, way off the road. And we would know because of the roads, the feeling of the road changes when you're driving, right? You would know. So, about some better visuals, autonomous vehicles could have some challenges. In urban areas, a little bit different. It sees cars, streets, roads, traffic lights, buildings. I mean, all the other things. But autonomous cars are going to be here, and I actually do look quick forward to it. To the idea that I don't have to drive, and it'll be you may not need to own a car. Maybe you just have to pay as used, which would actually be affordable for everybody if you don't need to have a car full time. And you basically sufficient automated vehicles, and you basically rent the car by app for X number of time, X number of hours per destination, and a pay per destination. That will relieve traffic because the cars will move in sequence, so there's no traffic jams. Because traffic jams are human problems, not a computer problem, hopefully. And also takes some pressure off the public transit, and also good for the environment because it's destination the most efficient manner possible.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if that'll happen in our lifetime, but maybe yours, not mine.
I think you'll see in your lifetime.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. I do think that this is the objective of rideshare companies to move away from autonomous vehicles. I do think that companies like Tesla and the other big technology companies and car manufacturers are moving us that direction. There's other questions, for example, like the instance I described in California about insurance, right? We talked about that. So you're not the driver, car's automated. How do you insure those cars? Because things can still happen, whether perhaps maybe the tire blows out, a different type of malfunction. The malfunction is not always like driving into something. Tire blows out, or perhaps the engine stalls, which is a legit human issue, legit weather related issue. Car battery has a problem. They're not flawless. So I mean, what is the who covers those insurance costs if God forbid someone's injured, or this property?
Right. And then there's the whole issue of what about the revenue from the excise tax and the gas tax? And, that'll have to be made up, I'm sure, in some way, determining who owns these vehicles.
Electric vehicles is murdering the gas tax. Gas tax collection has been in decline relative to CPI since the 70s. The combination of cars being more than twice as efficient than they were 40 years ago, plus advent of electric and hybrid vehicles has resulted in less gas sales compared to CPI. So it hasn't kept up with the price of inflation, especially the last couple of years, especially in COVID when nobody drove for a while.
Right. Yeah.
And as a result, that all goes to cities and roads. So the choice the legislature and the federal government has to make is just jack up the gas tax even more. But it'll be really subsidizing electric vehicle drivers. So the thing the feds, and this really is a Fed problem, as much as people think it's a state issue, and I found this very distasteful a dozen years ago, but now less so as time has changed, is vehicle mileage tax. You pay for distance, not pay for gasoline in terms of vehicle usage. So if you use a vehicle much, your tires are not ripping up the roads as much, so you pay less. If you drive a lot, you're actually using more pavement, for lack of a better term. So you should pay more. And it needs to be a federal solution because the states, if you try to do it here, where Massachusetts is a state where everyone lives on a border. There's people from Rhode Island drive up here.
Oh, all the time, yeah.
So the car registration is useless because they're not registered in Massachusetts. So there's no way Massachusetts is going to collect it. Gas tax, they'll be driving through Massachusetts. At some point, perhaps you need to fill your car up with gas coming from Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, New York, and Vermont. And you're able, you have to pay us tax via the gas tax. But the driving vehicle does not require gas. We lose out on that money by using basically our roads for free. So without an opportunity to pay us back. So, but it needs a Fed solution because that car registration, people will start doing the border side car registration to avoid the Massachusetts vehicle mileage tax and things like that. The advocates, I understand what they're saying. And again, I hated this issue a dozen years ago, but now times have changed. But it isn't a simple state solution. It needs a Fed component.
All right, well, that might take a while. It might take longer than an autonomous vehicle for them to figure that out.
I think it's a saturation issue. At a certain point, there's going to be a saturation of electric vehicles, and the gas tax revenues is going to plummet at the level so poorly that you really left with very little choices. And I know there's studies going around at the Fed level and state levels about this program, and it's going to have to happen one day, but the feds need to initiate it so that there's a mechanism for us to address cross-state travel.
Any discussion at the State House yet about the governor's housing bill, Tacky?
Nope.
No, okay.
It's been fairly quiet. Our good friend Gina Sarro is the House chair, and he just got the bill 2 weeks ago, so he's got to schedule a public hearing at some point, and see what's going on. I know, actually, I talked to, I think I mentioned I talked to Senator Ed Augustus, Secretary Ed Augustus now. And a very important part of that is housing development. How can we create incentives for more development housing in general, but especially in dense urban, and also looking at the housing authorities.
Right.
Me and the secretary did talk about the fact that reporting housing authority vacancy is a little bit deceptive. It's not always a vacancy caused by the housing authority not putting somebody in there. It's actually caused by neglecting maintaining properties as opposed to try to maintain the property to housing livable standards. They just shut down because they may not have sufficient resources.
Right. Yeah. It's actually here in Quincy. It's the opposite. They're turning into their own development corporation and building new housing for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, Jim Marathis has really come up with a lot of innovative and a bunch of different ways to address housing issues, and he has really put the foot down regarding tenant compliance as a landlord, as well as trying to make sure that they all meet code for the units, and also put in new heating and cooling systems, which again creates more efficiency on electrical usage. So I mean, they were using ancient boilers that were shared through the building, which means not everybody got hot water when they wanted it. Right. And it shifted to smaller boilers and heating systems in individual units, which is actually significantly more efficient in terms of energy usage, and also ensure that senior citizens get hot water and cooling on demand as opposed to kind of sharing a central unit built in like the 70s. So, Jim has done something that should have been done, quite frankly, in the early 2000s, is to bring them right to the 21st century technology. And current technology will last decades and will be efficient for decades.
Yep.
So look forward to see what else they come up with.
We got to go. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, wow, that was fast, Tacky.
Hey, it's always a great time talking to you. So, I mean, time moves quickly when you're having fun.
Yeah, exactly. As always, how do folks get a hold of you?
Oh, we're in the office, room 42. I've actually readjusted my schedule to spend more time there. I discovered good mental health for me is actually not being at home. So, things, again, living in a post-COVID world, I got to be in the office where I got to get out of the house. So yeah, room 42 at Estate House, 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the main number. Smash a button, get to one of us in the office. You have email tacky.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. I do read my emails. Can't claim I remember every single one. I do read hundreds, sometimes well into 100 a day. But I do read them all. We do log them into our system, and we do constituent services first. And I've received some colorful ones, and we'll leave it at that. Obviously, I have the state representative Facebook account. You can see my comings and goings. People like pictures apparently, so we're trying to increase my picture count. We have at Tacky Chan on X. We do a lot of sharing and cross posts with other colleagues in the state government. And of course, we have the MA Legislature website. You can look at your bills there. You can look it up yourself. You can also look at past hearings and future hearings. And then we have tackychan.org, which is a resource page. We need some updates. We're constantly updating that. And of course, here at QATV and Joe on your favorite podcast app, or YouTube, or on cable access television. So remember to check with Joe every morning on his 10-minute or less news stories on what's going on in Quincy.
Thank you so much, Tacky. Appreciate the little plug, and appreciate the opportunity to catch up with you again. Happy 13th anniversary.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. And I'll see you in a week's time.